Hey everybody, it's Kip Johnson, Jones Group Realtors, and this week's bi-weekly video is it better to be pre-qualified or pre-approved? I'm here today with Casey Carpenter with MLO.
Thanks, Kip, for having me on the show. It's a pleasure as always. Casey Carpenter, your guys' local lender with the up-and-coming mortgage podcast, MLO. So happy to join up with Kip Johnson. Is it better to be pre-approved or pre-qualified? We will find out and dive in.
This week's video is it better to be pre-qualified or pre-approved?
Great question, Kip. Pre-qualified. Usually what this means for a buyer is that they've either reached out to a lender verbally, talked to them on the phone, or maybe they've even gone as far as filling out a loan application, and the lender has then received that information verbally or maybe on a loan application, and they're giving that client a good estimate on what they think they could purchase a house for based off of either that verbal information or the information put on the application. And that essentially would be a pre-qualified. Yes, depending on that information is the most important detail. Is it truthful or is it not? Most people, if you've put everything on there as accurate as it's going to be, then you're probably okay. But at the end of the day, you haven't provided any documentation. And that is the biggest difference between pre-qualified and pre-approved. So again, pre-qualified, and sorry for running on long on this, but it's important. It could be just based off the application. It could just be based off of the information you've provided.
And I've had some experience with people just being pre-qualified. People do get down to the point where they're saying, well, we've been pre-qualified at this such amount. And yes, I understand you're pre-qualified, but that doesn't mean that they've ran your paperwork. They ran the numbers all the way through underwriting. And those numbers can change. That's the biggest thing that buyers need to realize, is that those numbers are not guaranteed and they can change.
Yeah, I think you nailed it right there. It's the important part is the pre-qualified. You haven't necessarily provided any documentation yet. Right. Yeah, you might have provided verbal, documentation. Basically, yes, I make $60,000 a year. My credit score is such and such, right? You might have provided those kind of details, but you haven't provided pay stubs. You haven't provided bank statements. You haven't provided the details that you actually need to prove of what you said was true on the application. So a lender's just taking your word or your application to the best of their ability and saying, hey, this is what you could possibly qualify for. But we have not looked at the fine-tuned details like you mentioned, right?
All right, Casey. With that being said, what is a pre-approved qualification?
Perfect. So we already kind of talked about that pre-qualified. You let's say you've done that application. What we're doing is taking that a step further, and a very important step further. And it's being pre-approved, meaning that you're providing bank statements, pay stubs, any type of really documentation that supports the information that you have put on your application. The lender is going to look through your credit report in detail, calculate that income, and make sure you have all the funds based off of your accounts that you've given them. And basically, we're just crossing the T's, dotting the I's. We're making sure that you are fully approved for the amount that you are purchasing. And honestly, it's important to have your details checked because you're making what, Kip? One of the biggest purchases, of your life, right?
I mean, yeah, if you're going to be making a big purchase like this, buying a home, you definitely want to have all your ducks in a row before you get into the actual purchasing process.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it on the head right there, right? You're making a big decision. You just want to make sure that you have everything checked off, that you know what your payment is, that you're comfortable, that everybody's fully aware of what's going on and everybody understands, what the purchase power is.
When you're in the real estate industry for 9 years, you see different things. I've definitely seen a lot of people who think that just because they've talked to a lender and they've gotten pre-qualified, they've said, hey, I make this amount and here's how much we spend in our bills, here's how much my debt is, and it's not checked. I've seen people come in and think that that's what they can spend. But then once the lender actually looks through those documents and sees that, there are some some differences between what they're saying and what they actually make or what they actually spend on bills. And that greatly affects their purchasing power. I've had clients that have thought they were approved for $500,000, and then once we really get down to it, they really are only approved for 450. Now they've already had an offer accepted, and they love this house, and it's like, man, we love this house, we want to purchase it, and then turns out that they can't afford that house. They're not going to be able to get a loan on that house. So
Yeah, and I think a big nail you're hitting right there is time, right? I mean,
Yep.
how much time was involved? I mean,
Right.
you're writing up the offer. You have different parties involved: lenders, title, buyers, sellers. It's just you want to make sure that one, things are going to happen. People's things are going to change, right? I mean, this is life. That
Right.
does happen. But at the end of the day, you can do your due diligence. That lender can also do their due diligence. We can make sure, everybody's comfortable with that pre-approval. We've checked everything. And you can go in strong and confident with your offer, right?
Well, it's not only that, but it's also, I mean, leading into our next point, it's also about when a seller's agent looks at your offer and he sees that you're pre-approved instead of pre-qualified, it makes a huge difference.
Got it. So on the upfront, good point. When you're even submitting those offers, what you're saying is, that other side might be looking at these different offers and basing on what one they might accept off of qualifications,
Oh, yeah.
pre-approved
Yeah,
or not. Just out of curiosity, in today's market, are you seeing, pre-approvals be required to submit an offer?
Oh, yeah. You always have to have a pre-approval. You can submit an offer with saying that you're going to be pre-approved within 3 business days, whatever, but your offer is so much weaker with that. Instead of having the pre-approval already ready, it shows that you're so much more serious about actually buying a home.
Got it. Great point.
Now, the third step to this is underwritten pre-approved. When I'm on the seller side and I'm actually, looking at offers coming into the house that I'm trying to sell for my clients, the best offer I can see is when they are underwritten pre-approved. Now, Casey, what's the difference between underwritten pre-approved, and pre-qualified?
Yeah, so we got pre-qualified and we're just going to kind of run it back for you guys. Pre-qualified, you just had a basic conversation, no documentation was given. Pre-approved, you provided all your details, pay stubs, all your documentation to verify the information you put on your application. That's pre-approved. And then the final step, the third step, is your loan has actually been submitted to an underwriter, and it has been reviewed by that underwriter. And the underwriter has signed off on those details and the documents that you've provided, saying that, based off this initial review, we'd be comfortable lending on this loan. But there's always going to be some, extra items needed for that final approval to close. But an underwriter approval means you've taken it all the way there, and that lender is comfortable providing anything they've given on that approval needed to close, that they would fund that loan. So that is basically, that buyer's ready to go. They're ready to, if they even have some final items, get to closing.
And this gives the seller so much more confidence that this deal is actually going to close. It's huge. Being pre-qualified is great, but it really doesn't mean a whole lot. But being underwritten, pre-approved is huge. Hey, thanks for watching my video again. And again, I appreciate Casey Carpenter with MLO jumping in on this one to explain really what this whole process of being pre-qualified, pre-approved, and underwritten pre-approved is really about.